Let me stop the music. Oh, that's easy enough. All right, so welcome, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brett Matsuura. I'm your Vice President of Professional Development. In my role, I oversee all of the learning and training curriculum for the brand. We have nearly 600 offices across about 100,000 agents globally. And my job is to simply bring learning and education to you so that to give you a competitive advantage, just to do more deals than our competitors. And what got me here today was I was in a senior leadership meeting in Fort Lauderdale, and that was Monday and Tuesday. Our presidents, Jason, and all the other department heads, they were all down there. When I come out to Florida, I can genuinely say that CB Schmidt is my favorite company within our network. And so if I'm in the area, I always reach out to Brian. I'm like, hey, I'm in the area anyways. I'm happy to tack on a few days if you'd like me to get in front of your agents. And of course, that's why I'm here. What I didn't realize was last time I came down here, I stopped in Miami, and then I stopped in Key Largo, and then so I went the other way, and it was really balanced out. This time I went straight from Fort Lauderdale straight to Key West, and so that was like driving, for me, it was like driving to Vegas. But I'm here, and I'm glad, and I like doing these smaller ones because I think the last time, if any of you guys saw me, I was at Duck Key, and it was for your big. It was a big thing, but these smaller ones to be a little bit more intimate, to allow for more questions, to dive a little bit deeper. That's what it's really here for. So a little bit about my background. I've been in real estate since 1999. I'm celebrating my 26th year in the business. My first half was in production, like many in my space, like Frank, we all started out as agents. In Utah, I was closing on average 60 transactions a year. And I had an average sales price back then. It was probably, I was a first-time home buyer because I was young. I was in my 20s. And it was probably about 150. Average sales price at that time was 220. And opened up my own brokerage, grew that, ended up during the Great Recession, positioned myself to create a national team to sell foreclosed properties nationally. And collectively, within that first 10 to 12 years, I closed well over 1,000 transactions. And I did that through trial and error. Like I got into Mike Ferry coaching within the first 6 months of business. I was just coming out of the Marines. I was very disciplined. I didn't have a whole lot of money. The one thing I could do was do what I was told. And so I did what I was told. I was successful. I was not successful in the way that was being taught to me. I worked the for sale by owners. I worked the expireds. I called around just listed, just sold. At 22, with spiky hair, baby face, wearing a suit that didn't look like it fit me, that didn't really translate into the traditional business. But what it did translate into was first-time home buyers. So I started marketing to the first-time home buyer. First started cold calling them, but then that wasn't working because I was getting maybe a deal or two every other month. But when I started direct response marketing, in addition to that, that's when things really blew up for me. The next thing is that I specialized in default business. I was doing short sales in the early 2000s, well before it became a household term in 2008. And by specializing, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What you find when you're specialized in something is that your age tends to not matter so much when somebody's having a really bad problem. If you've got an answer, it doesn't matter if you're 9, if you can work. So the idea here is I'm going to walk you guys through a journey. We're going to talk a little bit about market. We're going to talk about a variety of different baseline elements. And then we're going to get into the 10 strategies, top 10 strategies so you can thrive in really any type of market. Now, even though we have a smaller class, my goal here is no different than when I'm speaking live to a group, is that I don't want to waste your time. It's not, I don't want to waste my time and your time, or I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste your time. You guys are taking this out of your day. We're going to be here for about an hour. The goal here is for you to take one item out of everything that we talk about, and if you can implement that in your business, that's a win. But here's the key. It's only a win as if you put it into your business. If you don't take action and you don't implement it, probably this week, the further you get away from today, the more likely you're not going to do it. And I learned that because when I was up in Key West earlier, there's a lot of things that I talked about at Duck Key last year, and people are like, hey, a lot of great ideas didn't get implemented. So we're not looking for a dozen, we're only looking for one. So here's the objectives. We want to grasp the challenges and fears agents face in today's challenging market. Truth of the matter is, I've been in this business a long time. There's no such thing as an easy market. There's always challenges. There was challenges when it was in 2000, when I got into it, just after the .com. There was challenges when interest rates went down. There was challenges when interest rates went up. There's challenges now. So anyone who seems to think that there's ever been an easy market, I haven't seen it. We're going to talk about the top 10 strategies to outmaneuver the market chaos and increase your production and income. Look, nobody got into this business to be broke. That is one common denominator that I meet and I find with all real estate agents. And yet, when you start looking at the data, the majority of real estate agents are broke. In fact, National Association of Realtors say the revision is that the average real estate agent across the country makes less than $50,000 a year. That is not a living income. That's a supplemental income, but that's not a living income. I want to share with you guys some CB tools that are going to help you. I know you guys have access to all the CB tools. I'm going to put a little bit of context behind them and give you guys some reasoning to dive into those. Now, I am from the brand, so I would be remiss not to give you a word from our sponsor, which is our legal department. This used to be, I had to script it out and it took me 3 minutes to get through. Now, it's just always be sure to fully comply with all local laws, rules, and regulations, especially as it relates to real estate. If you have any questions, don't ask me, ask him. And the do not call list. It's a serious thing. I do want to pause on this. I came up and I've done my fair share and probably a lot of people's fair share of telephone prospecting. Things are different now 26 years later. They have laws. Laws are put into place because people don't want to be called. What this says, and we bring this up is because our parent company is steering active litigation on this, and it's a multi-million, it's a large lawsuit. What this says is if you call somebody who's on the do not call list, includes texts, you could be liable up to $500 per call or text, up to $1,500. And what that comes down to is, did you have knowledge that you were calling them deliberately when they were on the do not call list? That's the $1,500. If it's an honest mistake, that's the $500. Like I just got a text from home flippers in California. They text me so many times and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go after these guys. I didn't, but that's where my mind went. 9 times. Well, 9 times $1,500, that's like $13,000. In the course of 2 days, they just kept texting me and texting me and texting me. And I know they weren't doing it personally. It had to be automated, which makes it even worse because that by itself is another layer of it. So I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this to make you aware. And there are law firms out there in every state, everywhere, just waiting, and they're making a good living. They gotta feed their kids and put their kids through school too, and that's what they do. So just be aware of that. Now let's talk about the challenges. We have plenty of challenges no matter where we go, but I want to bring us into baseline when it comes to real estate challenges. Challenge number 1, rising mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are expected to stick around 6% this year, which is interesting. Now this is NAR's expectation, which it's already missing the expectation because we're more like 6.5, 7, depending on how many points and who you're going through. But rising mortgage rates by itself is not a big deal. It's a compounding challenge that's coming into play. Now, just like you've probably heard people like saying, I remember back in the 80s, we had 18% interest rates. Those of you that are saying 6%, you guys are just whiners, you guys are weak. Well, the average sales price in the 1980s was like $50,000. I'll take an 18% interest rate on $50,000 all day long for today's house. That's not realistic. Nor is it realistic to compare a 6% rate to an 18% rate with the other variable. Context matters. But rising mortgage rates is an issue, but that's not the only issue. We have inflation pressure. Since 2019, I do that date because it's pre-COVID. Everything changed in 2020. That's when the federal government started to put a lot of dollars into the economy. Well, if you believe the official number, since 2019, we've had our prices, our cost of goods, our cost of living has gone up 26.1%. Now, I'm one of those people that don't believe the official number because the math has changed. You can't compare the way that the CPI was calculated in the 1980s versus what it is now. The math is so different, but yet they're trying to keep it even keeled. But going off that number, it's official, 26.1%, that's kind of a big deal. But it's not the only big deal because our real average hours learnings. This is where it comes into a big deal, is that month ending August 2025, the real average hourly earnings went, well, I was going to say it was steady, but it's actually gone down 0.1%, which on a grand scale, that's kind of a big deal. So we have all of these compounding things, and then what we do is we throw in the home prices. Now, I do a little bit of research. I use this app called reventure.app. It's a great app. I use it every market I go into. There's a free version of it, which I always use. And then there's a paid version of it that just gives you a little bit more granular detail. They feed in Realtor.com, they feed in Zillow, they feed in Redfin, and then they just calculate all that out. This is not a Coldwell Banker tool, so I always have to throw that out. But I use it. It's probably one for you guys. Probably be able to use it just as a free tool, just as easy as I am. But this is what it shows: increased home prices. In 2019, what zip code are you guys? 433. 423,000. As of the end of September, 7/26, you guys have increased 71.6% just since 2019. Since pre-COVID. So 70%. Inflation went up 21%. How does that calculate? Well, the way that the calculation for CPI is it's a survey. They don't take this real data and they apply that to the CPI. They use a survey data of what, I can't remember what it's called. Owners, do you remember what it's called, Frank? Owners equivalent rent. So they go and actually talk to people who own real estate and they said, if you were to rent this out, how much could you charge for it? Instead of just using actual data. But that's like a real thing. So when you start looking at the rates and we start looking at the rising price and you start looking at the cost of living and everything's going up, that's the compound challenge. Typically what you find when this happens is that you start seeing fewer transactions because buyers are getting priced out of the market. They can't afford it. It's an affordability issue. So you start seeing inventory go up, which means you start seeing slowing sales. Across the nation, we see in 2019, around the COVID era, we had 7 million homes sell in the United States. At the beginning of this year, the NAR forecasted that it would be like 4.6, 4.5 million. Well, we're now trending on the 4 million mark. So we're about a third off across the country. And the reason why I got to bring in this baseline, because what we're seeing now, this is your first time that you guys are starting to see year over year reduction in values. So you guys are 4.3, you said? You guys are off 5.8% per year. You guys are probably seeing that. Inventory comes up, sales are going down, turns a little bit, it goes slightly over, and now you're starting to see this. Now, that's not a trend. One year is not a trend. But when you start seeing things, when you saw everything go up this way, and the headwind is interest rates, affordability, inflation, when we start seeing everything else out, we need something very drastically to happen to turn this around. Now, the Fed's just lowered rates by 1/4 point. That caused our mortgage interest rates to go up 0.9 or by 9 basis points. Typically, that doesn't happen. So what does that say? Well, that just says that things are a little bit out of whack right here. So that leads into fears, agent fears. What do agents fear? Well, in my experience, fewer transactions. That's one real fear. When you go from 7 million transactions down to 4 million transactions, and when you break it down to the local level, you have a pie, you have a lot of people eating from that pie. When the pie gets smaller, some people aren't going to eat. That's what it is, fewer transactions. If people aren't buying or selling, you're not earning. That's a big deal. Shrinking income. Why is that a big deal? It's because a shrinking income is a worse deal. It's not necessarily, you're not getting deals. You're not getting deals. Why do you want to get deals? You want to get deals so you get paid. That comes to income. With less income comes real consequences. When you have more month left over after the money, that tends to be a problem when it comes to being in real estate. The big challenge is obscurity. Frank and I were talking about this. Your biggest challenge, every agent's biggest challenge is not doing deals. We know deals are being done, fewer deals are being done, but we know deals are being done. But they're only being done by sellers and buyers who know that their agent exists. And if you're obscure, by definition, that means lack of not knowing, doesn't know that you exist. If you're not top of mind, that just means that someone else is. There's a lot of choices out there in real estate. In California, I think that there's more people with real estate licenses than driver's licenses. I swear to God. And when you get on the road, you'll agree that that would probably be the case. But here's the thing with fear. Now, I spent a lot of years in the Marine Corps, and a lot of things, I was very fortunate that I went in. Probably the best decision that young Brett made was to go into the Marine Corps. It gives you guidance. You go in as a boy, come out a man. You have personality issues for like the first 4 or 6 years, thinking that you're Iron Man for a little bit. But here's one of the things I took out. Fear is an acronym. The acronym is false events appearing real. One thing I'd like to highlight, that those numbers I showed you, those don't mean anything. They're just numbers. They don't mean anything until you give context to them or someone else gives context to them. Those same numbers, I could argue both sides of that. I could tell you why it's a good thing, or I could go very negative and tell you why it's a bad thing. That's my context, and that's the context you guys should have too. I always, when I get the mailers, when I get, agents are agents, no matter where you go, when I get data and someone just throws out a graph, what that does is it confuses the consumer. Because when all you do is throw out numbers without context, the consumer, the seller, the buyer, they have zero background to actually make heads or tails of that. Have you guys ever been in like a presentation where they just throw up a bunch of numbers and expect you to think about what that means? Well, that's the same thing, but that's fear. Is when the data point, I didn't say it was a good thing or a bad thing with what's happening. All I did was show you the numbers and how it correlated into things. But depending on you thinking that that was negative or positive, it comes down to fear. Now, most people look at those numbers that I just shared and they look at that from a negative perspective. Oh my gosh, prices are coming down. Is that a bad thing? I mean, is it? I mean, maybe for some. But when you have an affordability issue, when they lower long-term interest rates and mortgage rates still go up, and gold, when in 2019 it was at $1,400 an ounce, now it's at $4,300 an ounce, there's your real inflation gauge right there. Is it a bad thing that prices are coming down? Or is it just natural? Or is it just something that has to happen? Because what we are seeing is that wages aren't going up. It'd be one thing if prices are going up and wages are going up, that's just supply and demand. But here's the thing, and I shared this with you guys. Who went to Duck Key last year? Okay, so this is what I talked about in the closing. The same wind blows on us all. And this is a quote by Jim Rohn. I learned this quote before I was in real estate. And I've been using this quote in everything that I've done since I've been in real estate. It's never gone out of style. And for those of you who didn't watch it, is the same wind blows on us all. Now I want you to pretend that you're out in the middle of the ocean in a sailboat. No land, you're just out in the middle of the ocean. Out there on the horizon are your dreams, your wants, your wishes, your desires. And what Jim says is that the same wind blows on us all. The wind when it's favorable, when it's unfavorable, when it's sideways, when it's upside down, the same wind blows on us all. The economic wind, the high interest rate wind, the flat wage wind, the price appreciation wind. All of those are blowing on us all at the same time. Not just you, but also your competitors. But what Jim says is that the difference in arrival between you and your goals isn't the blowing of the wind. It's a set of your sail. And that's what learning is all about, is to set a different sail for this year and last year. The reason why people are fearful is because since 2012, all we've gone is up. All we've gone is just up since 2012. And the velocity has just been going at a various different level. Now let me move this out of the way. I don't want anyone to trip. It's okay. It's all right. Oh, good. We're safe then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Goodness, hey, back off now.
Okay, so the same wind blows on us all. Now here's the reason why we have fear. Fear comes in with change. When everything's going well, when you have the wind at your back and you're just cruising, and in real estate, and you're just getting leads, you're nurturing them, you're converting them, you're taking listens, you're selling deals, everything's all fine and good. You don't need to change anything until the wind changes. And when the wind changes and you're doing the same thing that you've always done, but yet you're just not moving, that's where the fear kicks in. And the fear kicks in because, like most of you, I'm guessing, all of our bills come due at the end, like in a 30-day period. Like our bills come due monthly. And so when things slow down and we're on a 45, 60, 90-day cycle, that doesn't work for us. When all of a sudden we're just cruising and stop and like, oh no. And so what do? Our first reaction is, and this comes of sales, not just real estate sales, grind harder. You're not talking to enough people. Grind harder, you got to put in more hours. That's typically what happens with salespeople. Now, I don't subscribe to that. I didn't get into real estate to ignore my family. I went through that route. Everything I've done is trial and error. I failed more than I succeeded, and I just kept on getting up. I'm just stubborn. That's all it is. So when we start talking about that, how do we adjust for that? Well, it's a mindset shift. That's what it is. A deliberate mental reframe that moves you from passive thinking to purposeful action. Now, I want you to pause and think about that one. A deliberate mental reframe from passive thinking to purposeful action. That is what a mindset shift is. So here, that's how we're going to do this. So we're going to go down these 10 strategies and we're going to go through these all. So number 10, some of these are going to be, hey guys, water's wet. You're going to like, duh. But some of these are all going to be relatable and we're going to dive into things. So your calendar is your boss and you need to treat it that way. Number 1, build a repeatable income producing daily routine, time block revenue producing activities, and family first. One of the things that I do, and I am notorious with my calendar. Everything is on my calendar. In fact, I also don't adjust time zones. Like I live in the Pacific time zone and I just traveled to the East Coast. Besides Frank, is anyone familiar with rucking?
Is that you're carrying a heavy
yes.
like a backpack that's weighted?
Yep. So it's having a lot of weight on your back and you just go walk really fast. It was first introduced to me in the Marines. Wasn't fun. I don't know why it is now and it wasn't then. Probably has to do with me volunteering versus being deliberate. But that's my thing. But I can't do it during the day. I can't do it at night. Oh, I could, but then I have to give. I have to do things in the morning. And so I'm typically up by 4:30 in the morning. I'm out the door by 5, and I'm typically gone for an hour and 15 minutes. That gets me 5. I call it 5 at 5. I do 5 miles at 5 a.m. That's my thing. But when I come to the East Coast, you're 9 o'clock or you're 8 o'clock. That doesn't adjust for my time zone. So I still have to wake up at 4:30. And quite frankly, I don't drink Coke a whole lot, but I'm kind of tired. But that's part of my deal. That's part of my goals. My goals don't change by the time zone. So, but it's in my calendar. It's in my calendar. My kids, the time that my kids go at recess and the times they get out of school, because my wife remembers this, I don't remember it all. It's in my calendar. It's overlaid onto my calendar because sometimes, one of the positives that comes from, there are pros and cons to everything. I get to work remote. The pro is I get to work remote. The con is I get to work remote. And it's hard to turn things off and on. But one of the things that I will always constantly do, I will not schedule a time where I'm walking my kids to school or when I'm walking to go pick them up from school. That's like non-negotiable. I'm cool any other time. So if you guys want, if anyone needs to get a hold of me, like 8 a.m. Pacific time or like 2:50 Pacific time, I'm not available. Anything else, I'll figure it out. But that's it. So you need to put into your calendar, it needs to be repeatable, income producing activities. You have 2 goals as a real estate agent. That's it. Generate leads of someone who's looking to sell in the next 90 days. Why 90 days? That's the deal cycle. If you find someone who's looking to sell or buy in 90 days, that means that they need to sign a contract with you, either a representation contract, either a listing agreement or a buyer agreement in the next 30 days. That's the only way they're going to be able to get what they want in 90 days to 100 days. That's just how it works. So, but you also need to find future business, and that's filling your database. So lead generation and then database growth, which is lead generation. The difference is you're searching for now business versus nurturing future business. You need to time block those activities. You need to block that off, and you need to be protective. And you need to protect it more so from yourself than from anyone else, because it's very easy. And I almost did it this morning. I almost talked myself out of going on my excursion this morning. And it's a trip going out. And I actually took pictures of the Key West office at like 5 in the morning because it's all lit up and it has these big skeletons out there, and I thought it was cool. So I took pictures of that. But you are going to be your own worst enemy. Now, my rucking, I'm about day number 470 consistently. I started on July 11th, 2024, and I've been going ever since. Now, if I miss a day, I have to start over. So the longer I'm doing it, the more incentivized I am, because, you know, it's like when you go into a construction site and we haven't had an injury in like 300 and something days, and then it goes to 0. It stings. The longer you've been doing something, if you challenge yourself like that, it stings. It's accountability. That, and I'm a weirdo. Family first. Family always comes first. Now, every one of us have gotten that weird why. What is your why? Why do you do it? And I've gone deep on that philosophically and just think about that. My why, and I think all of your why, is for your family. It's for the love of your family. It's for the love of your children. It's so that they can have a better life. And it's typically not a you thing. Typically, you people don't really, no, I just don't like, you know, if it's all about them, that's my why is. So number 10, command your calendar. That's number 10. So number 9, track your numbers. Data isn't just feedback, it's fuel for improvement. Data. The longer you track your data, the more likely you're going to be able to see the future. That's it. And the way that you do that is by looking at the trends. Right up until this year, our trends have been going like this. So it's only automatic. So it's very easy to see that if the trend is going like this, it's going to go like this. Well, now the trend changed. And it's not really a trend, but it's a very gnarly twist or change in direction when we see that. So now the trend is going a little bit different. For you, it's very easy not to really focus on your data points when things are going really, really well. When I say really well, I define that as you got a lot of transactions going, you got a lot of business going. You don't really need to focus a whole lot on your data points. Couple things when the market starts changing direction. I didn't say bad, I said it's changing direction. Homes are still selling. That's the positive. I would have a whole different point of view if we just went straight to 0. Okay, the hardest market I've ever been in, it wasn't very, very, very long time. Right when Lehman Brothers failed, I was very land rich on listings, and it wasn't just land financing. It probably happened here, but it wasn't just land financing. Financing period stopped for like 6 months. Nothing was selling. So even cash, even you couldn't lower it fast enough because people who had cash, they wanted to hold on to their cash because they were fearful. So it was pretty crazy. That was probably the hardest time in, is because no matter what you did, you were like, you just weren't moving. That was the hardest time. And then when traction came in, it got a little bit easier. But you got to know your conversion numbers. Because the one thing that you need to know about a changing market, especially when values are going down, your value as a professional just went up. Because when homes are each year, home prices keep going up, up, and up. The value of the real estate agent goes down because the consumer's like, oh, well, I'll just have my cousin do it. Oh, my dog walker, they have a license, and they'll do it for cheap. But when thousands of dollars are on the line and things are going south, that's when you really need to know it, and that's when they're looking for the expert. And knowing your conversion numbers at every aspect, how many leads do you have to, how many people do you have to talk to a lead, how many lead to an appointment, how many appointments to a sale, at what ratio are you with your list to sale ratio? All of these numbers you need to know. And it's important for you to know your numbers, but it's also important for you to know those of you who are competing against you in your market. You see, the way I see it is that I want you to imagine where you live right now, draw a 3-mile circle around it. That's your land. Anyone doing business on that is poaching. You need to look at it that way. Now, anyone here watch Yellowstone? You guys know Yellowstone? Okay, so we're not going to take anyone to the train station. But no one's going to the train station.
What about fishing?
Could go fishing. Mm-hmm. But so this is just business 101. If you're going to go open up a retail store and sell whatever it is you're going to sell, you're going to do market research. And part of that market research is competitive analysis. And the competitive analysis, part of that is, what do they sell? What do they offer? How much do they cost? One of the things that Frank and I were talking about, there are 2 variables that every consumer needs to know before they make a decision on anything. You're the same. You need to know what it is that you're getting, and you need to know what the cost is. Those 2 variables are required for you to make a decision. None of you, if you guys were in the market for a car, let's say you want to buy a Mercedes, I'm like, I got a black Mercedes, come and buy it. Well, how much is it? Oh, we're not talking about that yet. Let's go to a test drive. You guys know how it is. You can't make a decision until you actually have the price. And if you have a price and you don't know what you're getting, you still can't make the decision. The same thing holds true for us. So you need to recognize that when the consumer asks you for what your commission rate is, they're not trying to just shop you. They're not looking for the lowest rate. In fact, when you look at the data, only 4% of sellers say the most important attribute of or deciding factor for an agent, 4% says it's commission. 4% say that. Now, another statistic is that 4% of people don't think that puppies are cute. So they're probably the same people, and I would say just don't work with them. Set weekly, monthly, and quarterly targets. That's a key. If you don't set targets, you're going to hit them. If all you do is just wing it, you're just going to movement without a map is still wandering. We need to make sure that you set those. Doesn't mean you have to hit those. I mean, it would be great if you did, but if you don't hit those, at least you have something that you can compare yourself to. If you hit your target 50%, and it just so happens that everything else off by 50%, now you know where the problem's at. But if you don't set your own standards, because we're self-employed, because we're independent contractors, nobody else is going to set them for you, unless you're married to my wife, and then they set them for you. And then review and adjust often. There's something called a SMART goal: specific, manageable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Okay, it's the criteria you do when you do a SMART goal. Well, I disagreed when it was first introduced to me. They're like, why? I'm like, well, I would like to be smarter. And pun intended, because you have to evaluate and you have to readjust. And you have to do that as frequently as you need to. You have to let something work to the degree that you have information, and then you have to adjust it, you have to evaluate it, and you have to readjust. The wrong thing to do is to keep doing the thing that doesn't work and expect it to change over time. And that's where it comes into, one of the things that I started in Mike Ferry coaching. I started as a telephone prospector. I started in doing door knocking. And what I found over time is that, look, prospecting is synonymous with lead generation. That's what it is. You can just switch those words out together. Prospecting is lead generation. Lead generation is prospecting. It is not the activity. If you can generate leads, then you need to focus most of your time on follow-up. The problem I see is that when things change in the real estate industry, but sales professionals think that they just need to grind harder, they need to do more. Yes, they need to have conversations. There's no doubt about that. But the conversation that you have with a consumer in 2025 is much different than what it was in the 2000, is much different than the year 2000 or 1975. Now, for instance, I know that with our group of right here, our demographics, most of us grew up with one of two color phones. It was either canary yellow or it was like puke green. It was a rotary phone. It may or may not had had a cork board on it, but all of them had about a 200-yard cord, right? Now, every single time that phone rang, it got answered. And it was a race to answer it. Why? Because no one knew who was calling. But once the phone got answered, and they would say, hey, Brett, it's for you. What's my first question? Who is it? And then maybe a name comes up. I'm like, well, what do they want? See, that still happens. That's consumer behavior. But now we have to fast forward. The first nail in the coffin for that was caller ID. When we first got the phone numbers, and then we got the name, and we had our little 911 codes and 411 and the little things that we put off on our pagers. But that was the first nail in the coffin. We still do it. Problem is that we have a supercomputer in our pocket that has every single phone that we could possibly call or could possibly call us. Because I know through consumer behavior, and salespeople answer their phone more than just straight consumers. But even so, if an unidentified number called you right now, chances are you won't answer it. That's behavior. And if you won't do it, the consumer doesn't do it. That's why effectiveness, not efficiencies, not saying that it's not effective, it's not efficient, because the contact ratio when I first got into the business was much higher because technology wasn't. But let's talk about door knocking now. Well, we all have video surveillance as our doorbell. I don't know about you guys, but if someone shows up unannounced, first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at my screen. I don't know who that is. Look, someone shows up on my unannounced, there's only a few things. All right, they're going to try and sell me a house, want to sell my house. They either want to clean my house, they either want to mow my lawn, or I'm getting sued. None of those are good. That's the only reason why you want to show up. And I have a doorbell for that. So what do you do is now you're putting flyers down. Your highest and best use is not walking around neighborhoods, putting flyers down. You can outsource that if in fact you had an ROI on that. Now, if you're doing an event and you're doing like an open house and you're doing the 100 properties, whole different activity, whole different outcome, whole different purpose. What I would do is I would encourage you to pitch the doorbell. Most of the doors won't get unanswered, but everyone has a camera. Nobody in my neighborhood does this. And that is, I wait for like 5-10 seconds, I look at the camera and I pitch it with the flyer. We're having an open house. It's going from 3 to 5 on Sunday. We'll love it. We're gonna have free ice cream cones for the kids, bring them by. Here's a QR code. I'm gonna leave the flyer right here. Nobody does that. By the way, I specialize in this area. I have a monthly newsletter that goes out each month. It talks about what's happening in the market, what's happening on the value of your house. If you're interested, it's a free resource I provide only to the sellers in this neighborhood, and it's like getting a bank statement on your house. Everyone does that. Now, they might say no, but I'll tell you what, the 100% will say no if you don't offer it. Number 8, raise your price point. Maximize your time, effort, and profitability. I shared with you that I got started in Salt Lake City, Utah. Price point was down here. When someone asked me about production, I gave it in units. I moved to California. Price point goes up to here. When somebody asks about production, they give it to you in volume. In every market, there is a Goldilocks zone where you maximize the value and you maximize units. Every single one. What that means is that there is a price point that you are going to drastically reduce on units by hitting into this price point. Typically, it's going to be the jumbo loan. I know that your guys' average sales price is, reaching that million mark, so it's probably going to be in that 1.5, 2 million zone. When you hit that, your units are going to come down. When you go up a little bit higher than the medium point, that's where you're hitting on all cylinders. That's where you want to be. You got the good clientele that aren't just, the most work ever is just going to the first-time home buyer price point. That's just horrible. But you need to raise your price point. Increase your income while not increasing your workload. That's the great thing about being on commission. You add an extra 100,000, 200,000, 3, 4, 500,000 onto your average sales price. You just gave yourself a raise. Target move up buyers, relocation, and luxury listings. Those are you guys know why most people sell their house? Most people sell their house to move closer to family. That's it. That's the number one reason. But they're not have to sells. They're want to sells. We're going to get into that. I would suggest pursue the global luxury designation. That's not hard to get. It's not expensive. You guys are a global luxury office, but it allows you to differentiate yourself from other real estate agents. And that's the key thing. You know, there's a saying, and I believe it was Charlie Munger who said it originally. He says, when you have a product, when you have two competing products or services, and the consumer can see no distinguishable difference, the lowest price is going to prevail. So if you have two real estate agents that all have access to a lockbox, they're all number one in their business, they're all hard workers, they're all friendly, you know, all the numbers that we all say, and they're identical, and one is charging 2 points, one's charging 3 points, who has the more value? Now, the person who charged 3 points might have a lot more, but if they don't, we're talking about the perception from the consumer. Things like this, I wouldn't encourage you to do like a GRI, a CRM, you know, alphabet soup behind it. Why? Because no one knows what the heck those mean. I don't know what those mean. All I know is it takes a long time to get. And typically it's the people who don't do the volume that actually get them.
It's true story.
7, enhance your copywriting skills. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more deeper into the modern stuff. Copywriting skills. Copywriting skills is to writing as role-playing is to in-person communication. Copywriting skills is being able to sell in the written word, and it's a talent. It's a structure. It is a way that you open it, you identify a problem, you identify the problem, and then you irritate the problem, and then you come up with a solution, and then you make an offer. That's the easiest thing that you can actually do when you do that in copy. You need to figure out how to do that. One of the things that we know is that sellers look for things that are different than buyers. Buyers and sellers are not looking for the same thing when it comes to agents. When you do copywriting, and let's say you get a listing, your job for getting a listing is to sell the property for the seller. But really, your job to get a listing is actually to find a buyer. So now you need to market that listing in so it will attract a buyer. But now that you have that listing, you also need to use that listing as bait to get more business too. The biggest mistake, or not, there's a lot of big mistakes, but one that's coming to mind right now is that agents who list a property on Wednesday and put it onto the market on Friday are grinding all the time. You should not do that fast. You need time. Treat it like your Apple and you're coming out with a new iPhone. Use that listing to generate attention, to grow your database. If you use that listing, you should be able to generate 1 or 2 more transactions outside. That's the whole thing about getting a listing. It's not about the one that you just got. You got that one. It's about the ones that you're going to get because of that. So broader reach and higher retention potential. When you learn copywriting skills, you can actually generate leads online. I know that Frank, he has a tremendous amount of background experience in this. He can help you with this. But when you generate leads online, it's on autopilot. They don't call in sick. They still work on Thanksgiving. 24/7 lead generation with a strong call to action. I collect every mailer that comes to me from real estate agents, and they all look the same. They have houses on it. Seems like everybody's number one in my market. I'm sure everyone you guys get is number one in your market. And that's all it says. There's no call to action on it. There's no reason for them. It's like image advertising. Going back to tracking your numbers, everything you do needs to have a tactical component to it. You're doing this because of this. You're not doing, if you can't articulate why you're doing something on what you're supposed to return on it, don't do it yet. That's your own fail-safe to make sure that you're not just throwing money into the wind. Don't copy what other people are doing. I have I have a file this thick of just postcards. Now they're all 8.5 by 11, most of them, but they all have properties on it. They all, I swear, they all say number one something, number one agent, number one team, number one in Remax, number one in, you know, the small print matter. I actually had one that came up when I lived in my old neighborhood, and this is a time when I was actually an operator, so I knew who all the agents were in my area. And this one came up, and I didn't know who she was. I'm like, number one in Irvine. Like, how can that be? So I'm second guessing myself. Well, there's a reason why they say you have to read the small print. There was a 1 week period in August, the slowest month ever, where she was indeed, she listed a property that made her the top listing agent in Irvine in that time frame.
What if you just hired JD Fowler?
You know, I got to give props, but that was pretty unique. But you know, and that's the other thing is if you're not going to be consistent with something, if you're only going to do something once, don't do it, because it's a consistency. It's consistently being consistent that's going to do that, especially when it comes to mailers. You need to create an emotional connection that sells. That's what I was talking about. You find out what their fear is, you find out what their pain is, you agitate it, and then you come up with a solution. You have an offer that actually solves it. For those of you that were at my session last year, I talked about the free seller guides. Create those situational. I talked about death, divorce, and default. Those are the three situations. Those are now business. Death, apparently people who own real estate, they still die. They're not immortal. Divorce, apparently people who get, you know, married end in divorce. Actually, more than half right now end in divorce, and they have to split their assets. And then default, that's when your finances die. Look, I know that it's gloomy that we're talking about death, but those are situational. That means that they have to make a decision or the situation's going to make it for them. If you come out with a guide with a problem, that's the fear, here's the problem, you agitate it, and then you come up with a solution, and then you're like, hey, download my free guide. It's going to show you the 7 mistakes divorced people make when selling their home. They download that. Well, they got to trade their email. That's how you get into your database. And then you nurture that. That's how you do lead generation. Now, would you rather do that and have, you know, 10 leads come in weekly, so that's 40 per month that you get to nurture, or do you want to just dial for dollars? And if it was more efficient and effective to dial for dollars like it was, you know, way back when, I would totally be for that. But back then, we only had a door and we only had a phone. Those were the only forms of communication we had. And we all had to carry around a whole lot of dimes, and then ultimately we had to do quarters, and we had to find telephone booths. That's all we could do. But now you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have email, you have direct messaging, you have WhatsApp messaging, you have Facebook messaging, you have YouTube, you have FaceTime. Who here has an Android? I don't know what the hell you guys do, but those are all the ones that we have. So there's so many ways to communicate, and everybody is getting bombarded that they know they're going to get sold. And you don't want to have that conversation. You know how I know that? Because none of you guys want to do that too. That's why you don't answer the phone. That's why I don't answer the phone. Unless I will actually answer the phone just to mess with people. Like they're the one that called me. So build your digital profile. 100%. Now this isn't just an opinion. This is actual factual data. 100% of buyers and sellers use the internet as a tool during their transaction. Not all of them start there. In fact, only about 41% of buyers start on the internet, but 100% of consumers use the internet. And if you ever come up with a client who doesn't use the internet, you need to refer them to the person you like least in our market. That's just not a good transaction to have. Your website is your digital storefront. Your website, not your Instagram page, not Facebook, you don't own those, not YouTube. The only thing that you can own is your domain and your website. That is your intellectual property. That is your storefront. That is where you go. That is where you have information. It allows your future clients to get to know you. Here's what we know about the data. We know that 9 out of 10 sellers use an agent to sell their home. Only 10% don't. Out of the once 7 million, but now out of the 4 million, 9 out of 10 are going to use one of us. 81%, so 8 out of 10 of them are only going to meet with one agent before they choose one. They're only going to meet one. Now, 88% of them, Google says, has already made the decision on who they're going to work with. And what the data also says that they only work with people who they know, like, and trust. So how are they going to get to know, like, and trust you if they only meet with one agent? Well, what Google says, it's due to the online research people have before they make a choice. Now, the reason why I made the Amazon comment is to make sure that everyone here is a modern consumer. I know the way that you make your buying decisions. A stimulus enters your mind, you start Googling it, you start searching it. Now you're using AI. You're getting a lot of information. You might be looking for a dentist, an accountant, a doctor. You find one. You go to YouTube. You start to get to know them, like them, trust them. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to give them a try. You reach out to them. The decision has been made. So your next listing appointment has already began. And if you're not online, you haven't been invited. That's just the way it is. That's the way that people make decisions in 2025. So when you do this, get your website, have a YouTube page. 90% of adult consumers use YouTube. That is one metric, that is one platform that just goes straight across the board. They might use Facebook, they might use Instagram, but they might not use Facebook and Instagram. YouTube is that common thread that just goes straight across. So, and I think you do this, Frank promotes use YouTube. If you're gonna go in on one, do that one. It allows them to get to know you. That's how they get to know you or not know you. Look, you want to attract the people that like you, but you also want to repel the people that don't like you, and that's okay, because you only want to work with the people that you like to know, that you would like to work with. Chances are, if you don't like them, they don't like you either. So that's just the way it goes. Generate a consistent flow of leads and grow your database. I think when I looked at the population, tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but the Keys has a population of like 10,000. Is that right? No, what's about 80,000?
About 55,000.
About 55,000. What about this market right here?
5,000 Bitcoin and 25,000 QS, give or take.
Okay, so let's say 30,000. Zero chance that if you started right now on a single line dialer and conform with the do not call list, that you're going to make any reasonable connection with anyone on an analog telephone. Now, you could use technology and increase the frequency, which means you're breaking the law because you can't use a dialer anymore, especially a triple line dialer, but it's not increasing the conversations, you're just decreasing the frequency or the latency between conversations. The only way that you're going to be able to generate 10, 20, 30 deals or leads a week, compounding for multiple weeks, is due to the online lead generation. And it's okay. Like, our industry did a really good job of making us think that online leads are bad. And most of them are. The ones that you buy, they're garbage. They're just random. We're talking about laser focused leads. We're talking about creating content that a specific type of person would want, and now you know that persona. Wouldn't it be great if you just had that you cornered all of the divorce real estate owners? Like, that's not a bad thing. I mean, it is, because if you've ever done a divorce deal and you have to like really sell it twice, like, and you get to hear all kinds of trash. One spouse talks about the other, and yeah, see, you're shaking, you've been there, yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, so if you can stay away from divorce, do that, but it's a good source of business. But that's the thing, generate a consistent flow of leads and grow your database. Number one, find now business, generate leads. But if you grow your database and you nurture your database, sooner or later, demand's going to catch up to your database. Because most sellers and most buyers are looking without an agent anywhere between 6 and 10 weeks. That's their discovery period, typically based on NAR data. So we know what they're doing. They're searching, they're going to Google. Now they're using AI. They're trying to find agents. They're looking on YouTube. They're trying to find what they're going to do, who they're going to do, what they're going to work with. The content that you need, all those questions that get asked. Look, we all get the questions I got asked in California, that I got asked in Utah, that I get asked, they're all the same. They're all the same. What sellers want to know is, what do you do and how much do you cost? Without those two variables, you're going to get, I need to think about it. Number 5, automate to dominate. If you want to dominate, you need systems that don't sleep. You all have access to those systems. How do I know that? Because the brand provides them all to you. And there are some companies, because we don't tell people that they have to use our stuff, but I have yet to go into an office where people don't have the bare minimum that they need. You need a CRM. That's it. Like you need a modern day CRM. And no one here is on Top Producer, I hope. You know, there are people still on Top Producer. It's crazy. Did you guys hear that AOL finally got rid of their dial-up? This happened like in the last 2 months. Isn't that crazy? I didn't even know that was a thing. Segment the buyers, sellers, and past clients. Don't merge everyone into one. Your past clients should not be your sphere of influence. In fact, we really need to define sphere of influence. See, in the content that we have, and I'm working, like everything I need to change, it has to go through like 10 different opinions, and it's got to go through a legal department. Sphere of influence used to be defined in our curriculum, a personal relationship, meaning that you know them and they know you. Like, Arnie, that's not what influence means. Influence means that you're in a position to influence, have an impact over somebody's decision. And in 2025, you don't need to know them. They need to know you. You need to be the expert on real estate that they want to listen to. Like everyone has them. Everyone has a favorite weather person. Everyone has a favorite commentary. Everyone has a favorite. And you don't have a personal relationship with them. Personal relationship comes when they work with you. But if you don't need to have a relationship with them to have influence over them, but you definitely need to have a system in place. So segment buyers and sellers. You should have a different message going to buyers. The most important thing for buyers when they're choosing an agent is your experience. Sellers don't even care. The most important thing to sellers is that you have a reputation of being honest and trustworthy. And it's by far the most important thing. Experience doesn't hit the top 6. Market knowledge comes up, but experience doesn't. And that's interesting. Deliver real value, not just spam. What happens when people get a lead is that you feel compelled that you just have to send them an email. You just have to text them. And so it's like garbage in. You guys have been receiving it. I know you have, because that's just what we all get. If somebody comes in on a divorce lead gen, send them information continue to drip on them about the divorce process. If it comes in on probate, send them information on the probate. If it's about your free buyer's guide on XYZ neighborhood, continue to send them more information on the neighborhood or the attached neighborhoods. It's fine-tuning it for the thing. And all of this can be automated. Now look, it's going to take time to set up. It's not easy, but I'll tell you what, the harder it is, the more unlikely your competitor is going to do it. Everybody does easy. If I gave you 1 or 2 steps and then it takes 2 steps to losing 1,000 pounds, everybody's going to do it. And you know what they do? It's called Ozempic, and people are going blind. You're trading your eyesight. You can't even see yourself in the mirror now, so it works. All right, 4, leverage technology. Scale with systems, not sweat. This is where it comes down to. There was a time, look, if door knocking worked, Dyson would be selling you vacuums door to door. All of these Fortune 500 companies, they would be doing something that gives them the largest ROI. It wouldn't just be the laborers. It wouldn't be, people wanting to clean your windows or a driveway. That wouldn't happen. So you need to scale with systems. AI plus your CRM plus your website. Those are your non-negotiables. Now, as far as AI, anyone here at Gen Blue? This last one?
Haley was. She's not in this room.
Okay. So Gen Blue, we did the AI Innovator Challenge. It was a lot of fun. We awarded the top one, but we also launched an AI in Action Foundations course. What this does is it teaches you how to effectively and efficiently engage with AI. And it introduces you to a prompt architecture called CRIT, C-R-I-T, context, role, interview, task. If you go to cbu.com, actually, if you go to ai.cbu.com, it'll take you right to that page. You have to log in, so you're going to need to know what your desk login and password is because you still have to go through that security. But it'll take you there, and it's like a 15-minute on-demand course. What this does is it teaches you how to, AI, here's the situation. Role, you're going to act as such and such. I want you to interview me, ask me one question at a time to fill in the gaps, and the task is create a buyer's guide that's 2,000 words long. So you're taking all of this information. Now, if you don't do it that way, it's just going to give you, you're going to ask a question, it's going to give you like stuff like this long. What you're doing is you're talking to it like it's a 5-year-old, keeping its focus very, very clear. And so you can have them ask questions, and then it takes those answers. So it's taking the information from you, building that into the response. You could quite literally have a first draft of a guide for a neighborhood or for anything in less than 5 minutes. And I say less than 5 minutes because the first time you do it, it's going to take a second for you guys to figure it out. But after you do it, you guys will just be punching out. These are what ghostwriters, ghostwriters are out of business. Anyone that you would hire from the Philippines or from India or from Fiverr that would ghostwrite for you, their jobs are gone. So have them ghostwrite it for you, take it, put it in Word, and then just start editing and making it your own. That's how you do a guide. And that's how you do a guide in under 60 minutes. I was going to say 60 seconds. That's too quick, though. Add videos, landing pages, retargeting campaigns, AI. That's how you do it. Now, when you go to Amazon and you're looking at red shoes are going to follow you around the internet. You can do that with your guide. If you have someone going to your default guide and they don't download it, you can have a cookie installed onto it and it will follow you around. It's not expensive. Like classified ads, when I was in the early 2000s, you could spend a few $100 a week easily, maybe $1,000 a month, and you don't know if you're going to get a call. You don't know who's going to come from this. You take that, don't even adjust for the inflation. You take that same $1,000 and you apply that now, you're getting laser targeted. So it's going to follow them around until they download it. And then if they download it, it's going to shut it off, and then it's going to launch another campaign for the next step, because the next step is now nurturing. You got the lead. Now what? We want to nurture them. So now we need them to talk, see other stuff on us, because then it goes into an appointment. Launch campaigns that nurture and convert. Same thing I just said. So number 3, become the specialist. Specialists dominate, generalists get ignored. And this really kind of comes back down into what I talked about, the global luxury. Could be geographic. You could be the expert. I encourage everyone to claim your market. Well, by claiming your market, you're the specialist. You're the area specialist. You could be, a couple of examples of this too, was when I was working with an agent in the Northeast. They grew up riding horses. And so she specialized in selling equestrian properties. Apparently people who have horses that have actually equestrian properties sell for, quite a bit. And so the way that she sponsored a polo team. And she was like the queen of equestrian properties. Doesn't mean she can't sell other properties, but because she specialized in this one area, her reputation transferred over to the other. Same thing with a neurosurgeon. A neurosurgeon gets paid more than a general family doctor. A neurosurgeon can do what the family doctor does, but they have a higher, they charge more money. Now they don't, because they make more money over here, but they could. The family couldn't do that. And so they're kind of limited. Same thing with accountants, same thing with attorneys, same thing with all white collars. The other one was an agent in Southern California having a hard time just going where the business takes her. And in her prior career, she was a wine wholesaler, and she's a wine connoisseur. She was telling me, I'm that smart aleck. I'm like, what would my hot dog go with? And like, she would come up with these different, combinations and things. I'm like, well, what you should do then is you should just come up with wine content and give out that information, like wine pairing and such. She goes, why? I'm selling houses. I'm like, do people who drink wine buy houses and sell houses? She goes, yeah. I'm like, well, why don't you just focus on people who have wine cellars then? And she did. And to this day, she is known in the Long Beach area as the person who knows where all the properties are that people go for wine cellars. And they sell for more money, because typically when you have someone who's going to put a wine cellar in the house, it's going to be an upper end house. And because of that, she now actually takes that specialty. So you could be the coastal expert, you could be the neighborhood expert. A friend of mine in Utah, he started working with physician home, he's a lender, physician home loans to residents 20 years ago in Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, 20 years later, they're no longer broke residents. Now they're buying the big house, and he's cornered the market on physician home loans. Everyone goes to him. If you're a physician, they go to him. So there's other things that you can specialize in that you can actually get. You know, doctors would typically want to live within a 5 to 10 minute to a hospital if they're a surgeon. So that gives you an idea. Same thing with attorneys. They want to, unless they're like, you know, trust attorneys, but typically litigators, they want to live near the courthouse. They want to, or office near it. So there's a lot of things that you guys can do there that you could specialize in. Create offers, content, and campaigns around it. Don't send out anything that doesn't have an offer. If you're thinking about sending anything out that does not have a call to action that can generate you a lead, it's a waste of money. Unless, and that's being tactical. You have to look at everything you do. You have to protect your time, you have to time block, and you have to look at any type of marketing spend that you do, including your time, and you have to say, what is my ROI on this? Is it specific? Because if you can't define what you expect to get out of it, it might not be the best use of your time or money or resources. So anytime you send out it, I would say at least have your buyer guide, at least have your seller guide. That's your one thing that you can come back to. The other thing I would encourage you to do, the biggest bang for your buck in 2025, you guys might be feeling this. Are you guys getting a little bit AI annoyed by all the emails that has hyphens in them and how long they are now? Yeah, we're getting AI fatigue. Well, so is the consumer. So what we're seeing now is old things becoming new again. The biggest bang on the buck right now, as far as conversions, is generating leads and building relationships, are note cards, handwritten note cards mailed to people, and physical newsletters. Physical newsletters that show up once a month consistently have a higher return on staying top of mind with the consumer than anything. Like everyone does free. Everybody will send an email. It's easy. It's free. It's a few words. Boom. A lot of people will do video. That's okay. But to actually take the time to send it, like I only check my mail like once a week, sometimes twice a week. I don't get much. I mean, the only thing that typically comes is bills. That doesn't even happen anymore. So, but it's very little. But when I do get something like a magazine or something, I'll flip through it. And if you do that with your past clients in your sphere, so this is your higher level. These are not just, don't blanket a neighborhood. These are people that are a higher level than a cold. These are warm leads. But if you do that and you stay top of mind, just look what you're doing. You're arriving 12 times a year with them. And because 81% of sellers say the most important attribute for them to make a decision is a reputation of being honest and trustworthy, 80% of that newsletter needs to be about you and what you're doing to let them get to know you, like you, and trust you. The other 20% can be the numbers. But remember, you have to give it context. In fact, one thing that you should be letting sellers know, if they're looking to move in the next 1, 2, or 3 years, and they're wondering what's going on in the market, don't you feel it's your fiduciary responsibility to anyone that you know that might be the better idea to sell now, given what we're seeing with the trends? We might be wrong, but look, let them make the choice. Wouldn't it really suck if they sold now, they could net 20% than what they could in the future? And I don't know if that's going to happen, but you know, it sure seems like the precipice of it. Number 2, enhance your skills. Practice relentlessly, convert consistently. If you guys ever have an opportunity to meet my kids, go up to and ask them, how do you get better at anything? And they're going to say, practice. That's just something that I have instilled in them. And it's not practicing until you get something right. You have to practice until you can't get it wrong. That's the type of practice that I'm talking about. And leads are only valuable if you convert them. One of the things I talk about with newer agents and that I disagree with when it comes to training is that they have to go right into role play, that they have to go right into objection handling. That's not true. We need to teach them how to generate leads first before they can. What's the point in practicing how to convert a lead if you have none? That's just a waste of time. Let's get them generating. I know that if we get them generating a bunch of leads and they have a lot of times at bat, that, yeah, they're not going to hit hardly any of them, but they only need one. If you get 10 leads and you get one, that's not a very good conversion metric, but you know what? You got one. It's a lot better than getting one and thinking that you're so good that you're going to convert one. That just doesn't work. Not in any industry. You don't do one, you don't bat 1,000 all the time. Those are called pies in the sky when that happens. And typically that comes from a referral of someone who they know, like, and trust, who happens to know, like, and trust you. That doesn't really count. Well, it counts. I mean, it counts because it counts in your bank account, but it doesn't count when it comes to this. So you got to practice. Build conversions through consistent practice. Don't practice on your clients. That's what most people do. They practice on their clients. And it costs, because, the truth of the matter is, when you try something new, you're going to suck. Video. So many people don't do video because they suck at first. And what they don't understand is that you're meant to suck at first. But nobody's going to watch it anyways. So just get it out of the way, because once you do the first one, you suck, you're not going to suck as bad the second time. And then the third, it's going to gradually get there. So by the time that you actually have people watching you, you're not going to suck so bad. Implement the 100-hour rule. So the rule of 100 says that in any discipline, if you put in deliberate practice for 100 hours, that you will be 95 more proficient in that activity than anyone else. Now, it just so happens that 100 hours, now we call that role-playing. Role-playing on objection handling, role-playing your listing presentation, role-playing your buyer consultation are 3 separate things. They do not increase the skill set collectively. It's not like the court system where it just runs consecutively. But implement the 100 rule says that if you did that in 220 days, you're less than 20 minutes a day. If you do 1 hour a day, you can get it done in 3 months. But if you practice something 100 hours, you will become better than 95%. Now that's where lead conversion comes in. If you have 10 leads and you start getting better, your conversion goes from 1 out of 10 to 2 out of 10 to 3 out of 10. That's where practice comes in. But practice isn't just about verbal communication, because that's not how people are making their decisions. Practice comes into video, into copywriting, into systems, into all of these different skills. And you don't have to do it on your own. I mean, that's part of my job, is to bring some of these things to you. I think maybe I've opened your eyes to certain things. That's what my job is. Your job is to put into action. His job is there to support you. Like, we're all collectively here. We're all partners. We win when you guys win. But if you don't win, nobody wins. And so that's what we're doing. Oops, wrong way. Last one, generate leads. Remember, this was my own kind of figure of going from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. The number one thing that every agent needs to do, it doesn't matter if you're a seasoned agent or a new agent, obsess over your pipeline. If you want more transactions, look, you can't have a transaction without a lead. I've never seen that happen. Like, you might get one transaction, you might have one lead, but the whole lead thing is a common denominator. You've got to have a lead in order to get a transaction. So if you want more transactions over here, if you're feeling that crunch on the market and you're off by 30%, increase your lead flow by 30%, and you're going to see something miraculous happen. You're going to start seeing that come back up. So, but if you want more transactions, increase your leads. You don't even have to worry about how good you are. You will have a conversion metric, and then you just have to get better at it. Lead generation solves all problems. Indeed, it really does. It really does solve all problems. Like, if you have income problems, lead solve it. You have weight problems, just buy, lead solve it, because you can buy better food. You can buy, you can go on whatever program. The more leads you have, the more options you have. You guys want freedom? You guys want less stress? Less stress comes from not by having more business. More business comes from more leads. You go from leads, lead nurturing, to conversion into a client. You take that client, you service that client, you negotiate a sale. It's all a process. And you can automate most of that. If you don't have a pipeline, you don't have a business. Every Monday, every Tuesday I'm on a call with all the other department heads, and part of the conversation is about mergers, acquisitions, and conversions from a brand level. Look, we're all a different rung of the same ladder. The same things that you do as an agent is the same thing he does as a manager, is the same thing I do with this. It's all about lead generation. We just have different aspects of it. And when it comes to the brand, our job to grow is to build more, is to get more franchises. That's it. You guys call it listings, we call it franchises. And that's how we do it. But if you don't have a pipeline, you don't have a business. If you are looking to retire, if you want a succession plan, there is value in your pipeline, but if you don't have a pipeline, if you don't have a database, there is no value. Right now, businesses are selling at a 3 to 5 times multiple. So if you're generating $100,000 out of your business each year and you're looking to retire, that has a value of like $300,000 that you could sell to an up and coming person. That's how that works. But if you don't have a pipeline, if you're not building the system, that's the value of it. You can actually have your own franchise. You do have your own business. But if you have your own business and you want to sell that own business instead of, the sad thing is when you see somebody who's been in the business for 20, 30, 40 years, and then they just stop. Like all of that time, effort, and resources, they just built a system, they build this asset, and then they can now sell this. Dentists do it, doctors do it, like all other white collar professions do it. We just don't. Not on a scale like they do, anyways. Okay, but here's the actions. Enhance your skills. CBU.com. A lot of it's core content. A lot of it's depending on where you're at in your journey, may or may not be relevant. What I will tell you over the next 12 months is that we can come out with a lot of unique content. We just launched AI in Action, the foundations. Come the end of this month. In fact, on Halloween is the day that I'm going to get it launched. No excuses. We're coming out with a prompt library. Now, I talked to you about the crit architecture. What we're doing is a prompt library based on lead generation, lead conversion, and lead nurturing and conversion, and servicing the client, buyers or sellers. We're coming out with prompts under the same architecture that all you have to do is copy it, paste it into your AI of choice, and then just hang on and answer the questions. It's already done for you. So we're going to come out with 18 of those. We're also launching workshops at the end of this month. So if and when you do have questions, you go to a workshop, we've trained up our learning advisors so that they will be there to actually answer those questions for you. Or you can just ask him, whichever you guys want to do. Raise your price point. I would encourage you guys are a global luxury office. I would encourage you to, even if you haven't hit the top, luxury is defined by the top 10% of any market. So whether you have that or not, I would still encourage you to do that. There's a cost to it. It doesn't go through my department, but I do believe that by you if you're not going to do that, come up with some specialty. Don't use an alphabet. But do something specializing in something. And you get to use the cool black signs. Those are cool too. Create passive income. Referral rewards. If you refer an agent that's not from another Anywhere brand, and they come and join Coldwell Banker, and as long as you both say on it, you get 1 point in perpetuity off of their production. So it's just one of those things that you can actually, now the key is that you have to stay and they have to stay. That's the stickiness of it. They're not going to write checks if you leave, and we can't collect checks if they leave. So, it just goes for that. But those are things. Okay, so questions. That was a lot that I gave it. Anyone take anything? Anyone not take anything? Anyone want to share what you took away?
I have two things. I'm not great at following up. Every day I call this guy on my to-do list, and then it moves to the next day, and the next day. I'm going to schedule it, and I'm going to make those calls. Just
do follow-up Friday.
Okay.
I had that same problem. And now you might talk to them more than once during the week, depending on if you have an active transaction with them.
Yeah.
And you may not call them on Friday, but if you just time block an hour or two on Friday, and you just call it follow-up Friday, that will solve your problem.
Yes.
And I did that because I was holding a lot of listings at the time, and I just had to make sure that I gave those updates all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that AI course.
Now here's the other cool thing. AI Now we're just talking about the fundamental stuff with AI. AI is getting pretty cool at what you can do. Like you can actually have AI, and this is the kind of stuff that I'll be bringing to the network soon-ish. A lot of the things that I want to do when I make jokes about legal, they're only funny because I really have to do it. You can actually teach AI, give it a source document to know your writing style. It can monitor your email. And so when an email comes in, it will cross-reference your writing style and your source document, and it will draft it for you and put it in your drafts and text you to send it, to review it and send it, saving you guys time. That's some of the capability that you'll have with it.
Wow, the boss has something like that, where if you get a database email, you can hit reply and it'll be like, do you want to talk about, I don't know, this neighborhood they mentioned before? And then it learns how you write, which is creepy but valuable.
Yeah.
It's creepy cool.
Yeah, like for Gen Blue, the team created a digital avatar of me with my voice. And so all the promotional material was me going like this. Hello. You guys remember Max Headroom?
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. But
Any of you guys remember when I did that last year with the avatar?
Yeah.
I created the avatar.
I was telling you, Frank, my husband's a musician, and when they do writing before they go to a studio, the main guy in the band who does the writing can put in vocals of what the singer sounds like and say, this is the lyrics, this is what I want it to sound like. And we'll come in with a rough draft of what Britton sounds like, and he doesn't even have to sing until he gets to the studio to actually record it.
AI just did this. They took Terry Cassidy's song, which is he's more like bluegrass type of Americana type, and they said do this in bluegrass.
Mm-hmm.
And they took his song, and it was just
Have you heard
amazing.
Gangster's Paradise in jazz?
No.
It's awesome.
Your algorithm.
And forget what Sora 2 can do.
anyone else take anything away? Like what you're going to implement that you would want to share?
Prioritizing a website as a digital storefront is kind of focus of mine. That's been
Yeah.
backburnered. It needs to be focused on. Finished.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You know, there's only a few pages that you want to have on that is, of course, your home page, an About Me page, a contact page, and then your blogging page. Don't get too crazy out with it. What I see a lot of agents do is that they think that they're going to be able to compete with Zillow. You're not. The only way you're going to be able to compete against Zillow or Realtor.com with these massive sites is with unique content. They don't do video, they do data. So if you do video and you do unique content on a neighborhood, on a project, on something, that's how you can actually compete with those keywords.
I have a lot to learn about that.
Right?
That has to be you
ChatGPT
need
can
content.
help you.
You can start it and then just change it enough. For the
Well,
keywords.
I mean, go and take that AI Foundations course, because it really is 15 minutes. And once we launch the prompt library, CBU.com, if you go to the front page, in fact,
AI.
I think I'm online.
I
It
forget
is a lot
about
of stuff,
CBU.
right? My head is full.
I was taking a lot of courses at the CBU, and then I just kind of forgot about it.
That was me.
You know, honestly, it hasn't been that great. When I took it over, actually, you guys really didn't have anything. Like we did, the way that it was structured is that we had a lot of content that we would hand to the offices, and like you guys figured it out. That was when I took it over. I ended up having a whole team that I was able to implement virtual live instruction, so that opened it up to the whole network. So that's why you can go there and take a lot of classes. My next iteration of that is taking a lot of stuff on demand. I don't like driving any of you during business hours to learn content. I want to give you the ability to have that choice. I mean, it's up to you guys. I don't want to take that choice away, but I also want to give you that choice to do it in the morning, do it at night, do it in bite-sized chunks, because I know that I wouldn't, like even today, like most of the stuff that I consume, I won't show up I'll sign up for something as long, knowing that I'm not going to show up live. If there's a recording of it that I know I'm going to get, because I'll listen at 2 times the speed. Yeah, because that's just.
Or listen to it while you're walking the dogs.
Yeah.
Can we do something real quick, if you guys wouldn't mind? Walk up to the front there with Brett.
Oh yeah, I need to get a selfie too.